Hi there, welcome to Get Lit. My name's Pete Crooks. I'm senior editor and senior writer at Diablo Magazine, and Get Lit is a program in which we talk to local authors and writers about their books. We're here in the Walnut Creek Public Library, and it's a real treat to have today's guest. The term local legend gets tossed around. It's definitely apt in this case. We have longtime Contra Costa Times columnist and author of such wonderful books as There's a Hummingbird in My Backyard, There's a Possum in My Backyard, and The Raccoon Next Door. Please welcome Gary Bogue.
Hi there.
Good to see you, Gary.
Same here.
I grew up in Walnut Creek. My family moved here in 1971. You've been writing for the Contra Costa Times about wildlife and animals for like that exact period of time.
Yeah,
So
1970.
I've grown up reading your columns, and
Wow.
It's great to get to speak with you. Can you talk a little bit about how your column in the Contra Costa Times began?
Well, back in those, what I like to call the really good old days, I was curator of the Lindsay Wildlife Museum. That's about, I started in the late 60s, and along around 1970, not by planning, but just it happened, we wanted to get some publicity. So we came up with the idea to do a column about wild animals because our phones used to ring off the hook, and we thought maybe this would slow that down. So we went down to the Times, which used to be over on Mount Diablo Boulevard at that time. And they invited me to do a weekly column. They had a little tabloid on Fridays called Contra Costa Livings, and they would do a kind of a Dear Gary. And we thought that'd be a good way to promote the museum and do an entertaining column.
Do you remember what your first column was about?
Yeah, I made up all the letters because we didn't have any. You don't have any letters to start with.
Dear
so
Gary.
I just made it up out of some phone. I think it had to do with raccoons. I don't remember the exact reason, but that's the most common thing I get asked about.
Now, did you grow up here in the East Bay?
I grew up actually in Berkeley. Went to Berkeley schools, and then I came out here in my junior year and lived in Gregory Gardens and went to Pleasant Hill High School. I was in the second graduating class. And then I moved to Walnut Creek probably in '58.
So you've seen this area really grow and
Yeah.
change quite a bit. What is it about the wildlife and the open spaces in this area that's always been so appealing to you?
I've just liked it because it's right at the base of a wonderful island called Mount Diablo that we can all just look up at. And a lot of animals live up there, and they now live down here.
Your books are really delightful for young readers to sort of appreciate the wildlife that's in our backyard. How did the first children's book was There's a Possum in My Backyard? How did that book project come together?
Well, the book project actually started with the one preceding that, the Raccoon Next Door. My partner, the artist, Chuck Todd, is the graphics editor at the Times. And we had done a series of Sunday special sections on the outside back cover of the Times about various types of animals that lived in the Walnut Creek area. One was on mammals, one was on birds, that kind of stuff, in color. And Malcolm Margolin, who's the publisher of Heyday Books in Berkeley, which is a really nice little nonprofit that prints a lot of this kind of stuff, he had been going to UC Berkeley through the halls, and one of the professors had cut out one of our animal things and had it stuck on his bulletin board. And he liked it and called me on the phone and said, you know, would you like to do a book? And after being stunned and unable to talk for about 10 or 15 minutes, it seemed like, I said, you know, I've got a whole box full of reject slips. I'd love to do a book. And that kind of started it. And then after we'd done that first book, Malcolm said, you know, your stuff seems to lend itself to children's books. And I said, well, that's interesting. We'd been thinking about that. He says, well, why don't you do a series of children's books? And I said, well, how many? And he says, well, how many animals are there? So we've done 2 animals, the possum and the hummingbird that just came out, and we're working on the next one, which is There's a Skunk in My Backyard.
I interviewed the longtime Miami Herald columnist and now novelist Carl Hyacin recently, and Carl said that coming from a newspaper background, he's used to all his work becoming the next day's lining of the birdcage. having had so much experience writing for the Contra Costa Times as a columnist, what has the experience of being a published author in the children's book world been like?
It's initially it was sort of an identity crisis similar to the one he described.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is interesting because you put out a column today, and sometimes tomorrow when somebody said, "I really liked your column yesterday," you'll go, what did I write about yesterday? So I think it's been enriching when you get down to it.
What type of interactions have you had with the young readers at personal appearances and bookstore appearances and library appearances? You were here at the Walnut Creek Public Library for the grand opening of this new version. We're calling it the Walnut Creek Public Library 2.0 in the interviews.
I love it. I have gone to a lot of book signings over the years, and the children's book signings are really enlightening because the parents bring their kids with them, and you're signing the book for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get feedback from the children. And plus also we did one book signing where actually a whole class came. And
it's a field trip.
Yeah.
That's great.
That was a shock.
What have been some of the feedback you've gotten from the readers of the Contra Costa Times over the year? What's the general relationship you have with the readers?
It's all over the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
My idea of the concept of the column is I try to speak to individual readers, make you feel I'm talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to educate people to what lives in their backyard, to the point where 10 years ago I coined the urban wilderness, which is the animals, the backyard is the urban wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea is to let people know what's out there. And sometimes I'll come in and do a commentary, the whole column's about a specific subject. Other times it's a Dear Gary, Dear Abby type thing, answering questions. I get unbelievable quantities. I sometimes get 200 or 300 emails a day.
Wow.
With questions, and you have to practice triage.
Right. How do you filter through that much information?
I come in at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Really?
When it's quiet, and I go to and I prioritize. I print my email out, my letters, and I sort them. I have sorted stacks and stuff, and I try to deal with the high priority ones first. Maybe somebody's got a sick animal or
Mm-hmm.
or something like that.
Do you remember maybe the strangest animal letter that you've received over the years?
I've gotten a lot of those. Some of them I can't use in a family newspaper. But the strangest probably had to do with a person who really believed there was a Bigfoot living in her backyard.
Right here in Walnut Creek?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was she the only person that spotted it, or was there?
She said she kept seeing this dark shadows out there at night and stuff, and I finally suggested, not in my column, that she contact the Walnut Creek police, because I thought somebody was...
Or a pharmacist, perhaps.
After she talked about it a while, I think somebody was actually snooping and...
Oh, interesting.
Peeking in her windows or something.
Well, that's the beauty of the beat of a newspaper columnist, is you're really in the community every day, whereas as an author you kind of can isolate yourself and work on that one project. But it seems like you've enjoyed the balance of both worlds, you're not only an institution in the sense of your journalism, but your relationship with so many fantastic nonprofit causes and facilities like the Walnut Creek Public Library, but also the Lindsay Wildlife Museum in Walnut Creek and Animal Rescue Foundation, the ARF
Mm-hmm.
that Tony and Elaine LaRussa started 20-some years ago.
1990.
What is it about this area that has had this type of philanthropy and interest in animals and wildlife?
Well, part of it is there's just some really, really nice people, interesting people that live in this area. I think also it's a community that's accepting of things. It's part of Lindsay being where it is because the people who helped start it lived here. But at the same time, if the local government hadn't been supportive,
Mm-hmm.
when I went to work for Lindsay Museum, I was an employee of the city of Walnut Creek.
Mm-hmm.
I was curator of the Lindsay Museum, but my pay scale and all that was a recreational supervisor. I worked for the rec department. And it eventually, over the years after I left, it went total nonprofit, and the city continued, as it does, to contribute to it, but it has a nonprofit board of directors now. But in the same way with ARF, it was a go-to place for when Tony and Elaine decided they wanted to build ARF, and it was interesting. You remember the reason ARF started was a cat ran across the field at an A's game when Tony was the manager at the A's game. And right after they rescued the cat, he found out it was going to go to the pound and will probably get put down, and he and Elaine rescued it because they're really animal people, strong animal people. And I got a call at the museum from the switchboard at the lobby saying there's a Mr. and Mrs. LaRussa to talk to you. And I didn't even know who the heck I wasn't a baseball person. Tony, I'm sorry, you know. And I went out and we spent 2 hours at that first meeting, and they were asking me, you know, advice on how to start an organization and stuff like that. And I basically initially said, "You're crazy, don't do it," you know. And we had another 2-hour meeting, and out of that they went with it. And I spent a 6-month period as director, and then went back to being a columnist full time.
The ARF facility in Walnut Creek, the rescue shelter, the way it's set up as a almost like there's kiddie condominiums, it does not have the sort of ominous feel that so many of
No, it's very friendly instead of going into a cold. An interesting point, which a lot of people don't know, is the architect who designed that wonderful facility also designed Contra Costa Animal Services new shelter. Right? Well, it's not new now, but.
Do you think that the community realizes how special these facilities like ARF and the Lindsay Wildlife Museum are? Because if you go to other parts of the state or